World headquarters in New York. This is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Monday night. We do begin tonight with this dangerous Arctic blast and the storms triggering major accidents along America's highways, including a massive pileup. More than 100 vehicles involved in this. The images coming in, cars and several tractor trailers caught in a miles-long chain reaction crash on I-196 just outside Grand Rapids, Michigan. Look at this tonight. Nearly a dozen injuries reported, children among the injured. Multiple crashes also reported along the Indiana toll road, cars and trucks colliding, skidding right off the highway there. Drivers facing blinding whiteout conditions from the Dakotas all the way east to Michigan, visibility near zero. A United flight from Chicago to Orlando making a hard landing in strong winds. A front tire falling off, passengers deplaned right there on the runway. And there is brutal cold now sweeping in right behind all of this. Wind chills below zero from Minnesota to the northeast tomorrow morning. The feel-like temperatures below zero for millions, and from Philadelphia to New York City to Boston, it'll feel like single digits. Ginger Z is here, and Stephanie Ramos leads us off with the images already coming in tonight.
Tonight, the harrowing scene in a blinding snowstorm. More than 100 vehicles smashing into each other in a massive chain reaction pileup in Michigan.
It was just semi after semi, either going into the ditch, hitting each other.
The morning commute suddenly turning into a whiteout nightmare on Interstate 196 outside Grand Rapids.
It just happened so fast. It was a white wall and we just slammed into this woman here.
Nearly a dozen people injured, including children. Drivers rushing to help each other.
We got about 100 cars.
Up to 40 tractor trailers involved.
We lined up numerous ambulances, numerous school buses to help us transport the stranded.
That brutal Arctic blast now sweeping east, fueling new rounds of heavy lake effect snow. Near South Bend, Indiana, parts of the busy toll road shut down after multiple crashes. Dangerous driving in Durham, North Carolina, cars sliding out of control. Back-to-back weekend storms leading to white-knuckle driving in St. Louis, this car slamming into a guardrail. The snow and brutal cold stretching as far south as the Florida Panhandle. And in Orlando, a front tire falling off a United flight from Chicago after a hard landing in strong winds.
United Company has been advised we have a tow on the way.
200 passengers forced off onto the runway. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And David, the dangerous conditions that led to this massive pileup in Michigan is expected to hammer the region all week long as that brutal Arctic blast invades the Northeast. David.
So let's get more on this, Stephanie. Thank you. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z with us here on a Monday night. Hi, Ginger.
Hi, David. They've already had more than 9 inches in Walker, Michigan, close to my hometown of Grand Rapids there. And those bands of lake effect are still going. They'll go through about tomorrow morning. And it's really turning on for Erie and Ontario as well. So the Tug Hill Plateau, places like Oswego or Watertown, worried about 4-inch per hour snowfall rates. So it will be all along the Great Lakes as we see this cold air pour over us. By tomorrow morning, it'll feel like 8 below in Pittsburgh. It'll feel like 0 in Albany. It'll feel like single digits from Philadelphia to New York City and Boston. And we don't rebound much in the afternoon, so it's going to stay cold. Now, tomorrow's the coldest of this week, but you have to get used to it because a serious Arctic invasion comes in again by the weekend and early next week, David.
Your clothes say it all as well, Ginger. You'll need the hat all week long. Ginger, we appreciate it. We'll see you first thing in the morning. In the meantime, to the tense scene tonight in Minneapolis, 1,500 active duty U.S. troops have now been put on standby to potentially be sent in by President Trump. Demonstrators interrupting a church service where one of the pastors is also an ICE official. The Justice Department tonight saying it will now investigate the protesters. ABC's Matt Rivers from Minneapolis again tonight.
Tonight, 1,500 active duty soldiers are on alert for possible deployment to Minnesota. Those troops just on standby for now. But the city of Minneapolis remains on edge. After anti-ICE protesters disrupted this Sunday service, the Justice Department says it's now investigating. Protesters targeting the church because one of the pastors is also the director of an ICE field office. DHS says roughly 3,000 undocumented immigrants have been arrested during this crackdown in Minneapolis, including violent criminals. Agents storming this home. The family of the man living there says they terrorized his 5-year-old grandson and never asked for ID before pulling him out in his underwear into the bitter cold, releasing him an hour later. DHS says the man, a U.S. citizen, lived with 2 sex offenders they are still looking for. But his family disputes that, saying he only lives with relatives and none are sex offenders. And new tonight, allegations that some detained by ICE were denied access to legal counsel, including protester William Vermi, a U.S. citizen. Seen here being arrested after filming ICE officers right outside his house. He says he was detained for more than 8 hours and not allowed to see an attorney.
We're entitled to counsel. It's a part of the Bill of Rights, even if you're here illegally.
4 different attorneys tell ABC News they were not granted access to detained migrants, despite a constitutional obligation to allow legal counsel.
Why sit here and talk to me? Why go public?
I have privilege. I'm a combat vet. I'm white. I'm middle class. If I can't advocate for people who need it, then who else is going to do it? Who else is going to stand up and speak truth to power?
And David, as protests press on here in Minneapolis, DHS denies blocking access to legal counsel for anyone in his custody and says that anyone they detain receives access to full due process rights. David?
All right, Matt Rivers in Minneapolis. Matt, thank you. There is news tonight on President Trump's threat to take over Greenland. In an effort by Norway to defuse the situation, the president responding to Norway with a text reminding Norway that President Trump was not given the Nobel Peace Prize. The president now linking the Nobel snub to his threat to take Greenland, while protesters overseas are now wearing red caps that say, "Make America Go Away." Mary Bruce at the White House tonight.
Tonight, President Trump lashing out at NATO allies as he escalates his push for Greenland, saying because he did not win the Nobel Peace Prize, he no longer feels, quote, an obligation to think purely of peace. It came after Norway's prime minister texted Trump pleading we all should work to take this down and de-escalate, proposing a phone call to talk it out. Instead, Trump texting back, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." He's very preoccupied with the Nobel Peace Prize, Norway's prime minister told reporters, and I've explained to him many times that it's an award given by a Norwegian committee, not by the Norwegian government. America's NATO allies rattled as Trump sounds increasingly determined to own Greenland, which has been part of the Kingdom of Denmark for more than 300 years. In Copenhagen, thousands taking to the streets, wearing Trump's signature red hats, these saying "Make America Go Away." 8 NATO countries, including France, Germany, and the UK, moving forces to Greenland as a show of support. Over the weekend, Trump threatening new tariffs on those countries, 10% in February, jumping to 25% in June, until a, quote, deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland.
The use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
And tomorrow, President Trump heads to Europe for the World Economic Forum in Davos. It's there he's supposed to unveil his Board of Peace. One leader invited to join the group, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, the board is intended to help rebuild Gaza, but Trump seems to have larger ambitions that go far beyond just that conflict, David.
Mary Bruce, starting another week at the White House. Mary, thank you. There's an urgent manhunt tonight after a judge and his wife were found shot in their home in Lafayette, Indiana. We do have news on the judge's condition tonight and the statement now from his wife. Here's our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky now.
Tonight, multiple agencies, including the FBI, are searching for whoever shot Indiana Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife in their Lafayette home Sunday afternoon.
They advised there was a knock on the door. Someone advised we have your dog, and then a shot came through the door. He shot through the arm. They don't know who shot him.
Police said shell casings were recovered at the scene, but said nothing about a motive or suspect.
They're inside of the residence.
The shotgun shell on the front porch.
The mayor of Lafayette said every available resource is being used to apprehend the shooter. Meyer is stable and recovering. His wife said everyone has been so kind and compassionate. She thanked the community for its support and the medical personnel who provided care. Meyer has been on the bench in Tippecanoe County since 2014. Tonight, Indiana's chief judge said any violence against a judge or a judge's family is completely unacceptable. All Indiana judges were asked recently, David, whether they had received threats. A majority said yes and pushed for a state version of a federal law that restricts online access to judges' home addresses.
David? Aaron Katursky tonight. Aaron, thanks. Overseas tonight, the catastrophic high-speed train collision in southern Spain. The death toll rising this evening. At least 40 people killed, passengers trapped, smashing through the windows from the inside, dangling, trying to escape. ABC's Tom Soufi-Burge has made it to the region tonight.
Tonight, a complex recovery operation is underway as investigators comb the mangled wreckage of two high-speed trains that collided in southern Spain. Several rail cars were crushed into a ravine after the end of a train heading north to Madrid, travelling roughly 130 miles per hour, derailed, crossing into the path of another train heading in the opposite direction. At least 40 people confirmed dead. Investigators here fear that number will rise as more are missing. Mayor Rafael Reyes, one of the first on the scene.
You're grateful to the local people who just got down there and helped in any way they could to try and get people off those trains in that horrific situation.
Today, crews meticulously examining that straight section of recently renovated track. A part of it seen in this official photo may have ruptured, but Spain's transport minister saying it's not clear if it was a cause or consequence of the accident.
David, officials saying the train which initially derailed was relatively new and had passed a safety test just 4 days ago. David?
Just a horrific scene. Tom Soufi-Burge live from Spain tonight. Tom, thank you. To Iran tonight, an Iran supreme leader acknowledging thousands of protesters were killed during more than 2 weeks of protests sweeping that country. Human rights groups say more than 4,000 people were killed in the government crackdown. And tonight we have learned that hackers reportedly took over Iranian state TV for a time, airing images of the country's exiled crown prince and urging authorities not to point their weapons at the people. Back here in the U.S., meantime, news this evening on actor Timothy Busfield, accused of child sex assault. His wife, actress Melissa Gilbert, writing an emotional letter to the judge and what she's now saying tonight. Here's ABC's Rhiannon Alley for us.
Tonight, Melissa Gilbert making an impassioned plea to the judge in husband Timothy Busfield's case, saying, quote, Tim has the strongest moral compass of any human I have ever known. Busfield now behind bars in New Mexico with no bond, charged with sex crimes against a child actor he directed on the TV show The Cleaning Lady. In a letter, Gilbert saying, I only want this extraordinary man safe and whole. Please take care of my sweet husband. His wife's letter among dozens expressing support for the Emmy-winning actor and director, including some of his former 30-something co-stars. Busfield has denied all allegations, issuing this statement obtained by TMZ.
I'm going to confront these lies. They're horrible. I'm going to fight it.
In court documents, Busfield's lawyers say the child's parents have a history of fraud and dishonesty, and that the allegations emerged after the child and a sibling were cut from the show in 2024, with the mother allegedly saying to the show's lead actor that she would get her revenge against Tim Busfield. His lawyers claim 2 independent investigations by Warner Brothers Studios into complaints about Busfield and minor actors on the set lacked corroboration. One investigator, they say, found there is virtually no time that a minor could be alone with an adult who is neither their parent nor the studio teacher. David Gilbert and a dozen others are expected to speak on Busfield's behalf tomorrow at a detention hearing to determine whether he'll be released on bail while he fights these charges. David?
Rhiannon Alley tonight. Rhiannon, thank you. When we come back tonight, a major geomagnetic storm about to hit. NOAA has issued an alert tonight, what you'll see in the sky and what this could potentially do to some cell service. Also remembering Valentino tonight and his famous pieces right here. News tonight after the arrest of actor Kiefer Sutherland, what law enforcement sources are now telling ABC News what he's accused of doing. Also ahead, 3 separate shark attacks in 24 hours. A man and a 12-year-old boy in critical condition tonight. The escape for another boy. And after that heartbreaking playoff loss for Bills fans, tonight the big move by the Buffalo Bills. In a moment. Tonight, new reporting here after Kiefer Sutherland's arrest. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News the Uber driver claimed that Sutherland punched him multiple times and tried to choke him. The driver did not need medical treatment. The sources say it appeared to officers on the scene that Sutherland was under the influence. The sources say the driver's dash camera may have captured the alleged encounter. No charges filed yet. Sutherland was arrested on suspicion of making criminal threats. 3 shark attacks in 24 hours in Sydney, Australia. On Sunday, a 12-year-old boy lost both of his legs in an attack in Sydney Harbor. Earlier today, a shark took a chunk out of a surfboard that an 11-year-old boy was riding. Hours later, a man in his 20s today suffering shark bites to his legs. Officials have now closed Sydney's northern beaches in response tonight. When we come back here after that heartbreaking playoff loss for Bills fans, the Bills and their big move tonight, And legendary designer Valentino has died. The trademark gowns worn by Jackie Kennedy, Julia Roberts, and Princess Diana in a moment here. To the index of other news tonight, we learned today that legendary designer Valentino has died. From the runway to the red carpet, Valentino crafting a world of luxury with his elegant gowns and styles, dresses worn by Jackie Kennedy, Julia Roberts, Princess Diana, just to name a few. His impact far and wide. Valentino was 93. Millions of Americans could get a glimpse of the northern lights tonight. NOAA now warning of a severe geomagnetic storm. It could also impact satellite navigation, radio frequencies, and power systems. The northern lights will be visible all the way south to Alabama, they say. The Buffalo Bills firing head coach Sean McDermott, the decision coming after that heartbreaking playoff loss to the Broncos. McDermott spent 9 seasons with the team, among 10 NFL coaches now fired after this season. When we come back here in the broadcast, the images on this holiday, what Americans did across the country, and Dr. Martin Luther King in his own words tonight. Finally tonight on this holiday, Americans marking this day and the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. Tonight across this country, the acts of service in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Volunteers sorting donated food in Augusta, Georgia at a food drive. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, students helping to paint a new office for housing nonprofit Beehive Affordable Housing Outreach. And at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Washington, the park ranger and his salute. Dr. King often spoke of the gift of service. He also said the time is always right to do the right thing. And this is what he said in his final Sunday sermon at Washington National Cathedral.
It may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and the violent actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of the good people who sit around and say, wait on time.
His warning about silence, about indifference.
However dark it is, however deep the angry feelings are and the violent explosions are, I can still sing, we shall overcome. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
Dr. King in his own words tonight. I'm David Muir. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Have a good evening. Good night.
David Muir, the most watched newscaster.